and welcome to Just One More Cookie, a podcast about two sisters' journeys toward complete health and wellness. We definitely don't have it all figured out, and we're still in the thick of it, but we are enjoying the ride. We'd love for you to come and join us for Just One More Cookie. Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Just One More Cookie. I am Abby.
And I'm Amy.
And we are so excited to be with you today. Before we get started, we just want to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, share, leave a review, anything you can do to give us some love, share us, get us out there. We really want to continue to build our community. We are so excited for all the feedback we've gotten so far and all the love that we've received. We're so grateful and we love you guys. And we're so happy that you're on this journey with us. So before we get started, we're going to continue our food of the week. So it is my turn. So I am going to share something with you that I love. I actually talked about this. I think it was on the stress episode. And I was talking about my guilty pleasure, my once a week treat. So this week, this episode is brought to you by Enlightened Ice Cream. They have a website. If you go to, you can actually Google them. And if you go to their website, you can enter in your zip code and it can show you where you can get it. I have tried a couple low-fat ice creams, and they were absolutely horrendous. I hated them. But this one has the consistency of actual ice cream. I'm telling you, I could not tell the difference. So my favorite is sea salt caramel. It is delicious. They have ice cream bars. So if you are doing Weight Watchers, if you're doing points, it's only 3 points, which is amazing for a sweet. They also have pints. If you can find them, they're not available in every store, but the pints of sea salt caramel are only 10 points, which is absolutely amazing for a sweet treat. They have cookies and cream. They have chocolate chip cookie dough, a whole host of things. And if you are doing low carb, if you're doing keto, something like that, they do have really low carb ones as well, low carb options. I think they have maybe 1 gram of carbs in them or something. But if you are an ice cream person, check it out because it will definitely be worth your time to give it a chance. Like I said, it is unlike the rest of the not so great low fat ice creams. But anyways.
Well, I wanted to make a comment about it because I was initially not a believer. Because I can't remember what kind I had because I always try to dabble in like the low fat ice cream, just like hoping that the claims are true. Like Halo Top to me is garbage. I don't like it. Some people like swear by it and love it. Not my jam. So when I tried Enlighten, I was like, it's all right. I'm not really a fan. And you like rave about it. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
I love it.
Now I will say that when I was visiting, Abigail has all of her Enlightened ice cream at my mom's house because she likes to just go and take one at a time. But we talked about this before, like knowing your vices and like knowing what you can and can't control.
Yes, so, it cannot stay at my house. So it stays, it's locked up, not locked up, but my mom keeps it for me. And then once a week I go and grab it on my way home and have my little weekly treat. But yes, I have a gross of them in her freezer. So.
Yeah. So, you know, Mama Gail's house is a fortress of snacks. And so one night I'm looking in the freezer. I'm like, oh, look at these little pints of Enlightened ice cream. And they were mint chocolate chip, which is one of my favorite flavors. So I ate one and I was like, oh, this is so good.
Yes. And then I get a phone call. Abigail, I have a confession to make. Like, what? What is the problem? I ate one of your ice creams.
Yeah, and it went from one to like I literally ate a pint every day. I ate 3 of them. Yeah. And I also tried a sea salt caramel bar. So when I left, I had to leave my mom $20 because I was like, listen, Abigail's probably going to be upset. Here's his $20. Just fill that back up. But I will also attest to the fact that I don't like low-fat ice cream because I think it tastes grainy sometimes. But I will vouch for this and say, I agree. I really enjoy that ice cream.
Yes. So it's great. If you are interested, give it a try. Like I said, Google it, Enlightened Ice Cream. You can find their website. And if you're interested, type in your zip code. If you got someplace close to you, definitely give it a try. What we're going to talk about today is feeling overwhelmed and what we can do about it. I know, again, this is a universal struggle, and I know that sometimes we all experience this. It can be worse than others. So sometimes, like I said, it kind of ebbs and flows, and sometimes you're okay with it. You just kind of cruising along, and then all of a sudden it's like a tidal wave of everything just comes at you, the weight of the world, all your responsibilities, everything that you need to accomplish, and you feel like this is so much, I'm never going to get it done. So just from my own experience, I can relate this. I relate this very closely with my job. So some of you know my job. I actually work for a hospital system, and I do long story short, in combining all of the many hats that I wear, my main focus is really I am an event planner. That's the majority of my job. And for any of you out there that are event planners or have planned an event, you can attest that especially if it is a large event, it can really stress you out. And I have learned, I've been doing this job for 7 years. So I've kind of learned to cope with it because I've done it for so long that I have my process in place. I know exactly what I'm doing. A lot of my people are repeat clients. I do them every year. So I'm familiar with them. And so I give myself enough time. I know when they are in my calendar, I can plan, but every so often it just becomes too much, and too much comes together at once, especially this year with COVID hitting. A lot of my stuff on my books got backed up. So it got to the point where everything was coming together at once. And then I had this event that kind of got thrown at me at the last minute. And normally for an event, it takes me probably about a week to get everything into place. I like to give myself more time, but this event, I actually had to plan in one day. And I was going on vacation, a staycation. So I was going to be gone for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And the event was on Tuesday. So it was a Thursday. I got all the information on Thursday this is the day before I was going to leave. I went to go and visit the site to see what the setup was. And so I get back and I have my little checklist and I'm going through everything and I am scrambling. I am sending emails like crazy. I'm like, look, I know this is last minute. Is there any way that you can get me this information, the stuff that I need? I was going all over the place. And it got to the point where I was so stressed and so exhausted. My friend, she has the office right across from me and she helps me a lot with a lot of my stuff. So I walked into her office and because the printer is in her office. So I walk in there and I just stand and I'm staring. And I said, I don't know why I came in here. I'm just like, and I had this look and I didn't know why I came in there. And I thought, I don't even know what to do. Do I go back to my office? Do I sit down? I am lost. So she looked at me and she was like, go sit in your office. I'm going to call this person because we had to call a couple other clinics to get some supplies because of course this is the last minute. I don't have anything I need. So she was like, okay, go sit down. I'm going to call this person. You finish up this task. And thank God she saved me. But the feeling, I am telling you, it was awful. I think I went home. This might have been the day actually that I talked about in stress management. I don't remember, but this might have been the day. And if it wasn't, I needed to do this. When I walked into the house and just literally laid on the couch and stared for a good 15 minutes before I could get up and do anything else. So I didn't even take my work clothes off and put on some comfy sweats or anything. I was just sitting there like, I don't even know how I functioned during this day. It was a miracle that I did not drop to the floor and go to the fetal position and start crying and saying, I want my mommy. It was rough.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to being overwhelmed, it's like so much information, stimuli, tasks, like it's like everything comes in at once, and different people handle that differently, and like in some cases, some people might turn to negative addiction. Some people might just crash and say, I can't do it. But I think the reality is that so many of us are dealing with some form of overwhelm in our life. I remember when I first graduated college And I couldn't find a job in Indiana. I wanted to get a job in Indiana, couldn't find it. So I was like, well, I just have to leave. And just based on my personality, I was like, I'm just going to apply to Nashville, Tennessee. Why not? I applied at this random school, and literally 24 hours later, they contacted me and they were like, can you come in for an interview? And I was like, yes. So 2 days later, I'm driving down to Nashville. I go to the interview, and okay, so the front of the school looks normal. And like when I walk in, it looks very school-ish, like a little rundown, but nothing like alarming. And I'm sitting at this table with like 5 administrators, and they're looking at my resume. Now, mind you, I'm out of college. The only experience I have is student teaching. And so they're all looking at my resume, and this is like my first professional interview. And so the principal, she's like, oh, yes, it's really good. This is really good. And then literally that's all they were saying. Oh, yeah, this is really good, really good. Like, didn't really ask me any questions. So then they kind of just looked at me and they were like, yeah, this is really good. And I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. So then the principal, she was like, so when can you start? And I was like, when can I start? I must have a killer resume. Like that resume, I should be a resume writer. Like that's how immediate they offer me the job. I was like, I don't know, like as soon as you guys need me. She's like, yeah, can you be here in, literally it was like a week and a half. Can you be here? And I'm literally having to move my entire life in a week and a half. And I'm like, sure. What? Of course. So then after they give me the job, then the 2 male administrators, the first one was like, oh, this is great. So we also need a softball coach. And I'm like nodding my head. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't play softball. And I've really never played softball. And he's just like nodding at me. He's like, you can learn. I was like, no, I'm good. So then the other administrator is like, you play any tennis? I was like in elementary school, recreationally, he's like, we need a tennis coach too. So like,
you totally could have though, because we did that. I think it was in middle school, didn't we? Went to tennis camp in the summer. You could have figured it out.
I'm not going to coach people. Like I could like teach them how to like backhand, and that's about it. And then just clap for them at the side and say, hey, whatever you did there, keep doing that. But what I soon learned is that we lost at all sports. So I think the standards were rather low. But so I move in like a week and a half, and just moving in general, like moving your life to a different state. Like I'm on overdrive. Like I'm just going. And like, I can't even think. I move there. I go to the first 3 days of orientation. Now, this is my first professional teaching job. And my student teaching job was in a very organized, well-funded school. It was like totally different. This was in a poor area. It was, I think that they were like pretty much the lowest performing school in Nashville, Tennessee, and like just had the worst reputation. Now, I didn't know any of this.
Wow.
Because in my mind, I'm like, I just got a job because my resume rocked. So I go into like the orientation, and I'm asking questions that I think I should be asking. Where are the textbooks? First question. Answer. Oh, we won't get those until September. School starts in August, like a month. There's no textbooks. Okay. Where is the department chair head who's like over English, who can help me with my curriculum? We don't have one. Okay. Where is my classroom? I get led down to the science hall, and I have a classroom with science tables, beakers, sinks. And the administrator that walks me down, he was like, it's a really nice classroom. I mean, literally.
Wow.
No, I was like, sir, I teach English. I mean, you can do something with these tables, right? Then I was like, no, I need a new classroom. So he's perplexed. He's like, I'll get back to you. At the end of the day, they lead me to a storage room right next to the library that had no air conditioning. And I'm sure that there was mold in there.
I don't remember any of this. This is crazy.
Traumatizing. I probably couldn't even communicate it because I was so traumatized.
Yeah, I remember some of this, but not all of it. This is insane. I remember the science class part, but I didn't remember the rest.
Yeah. And then I'm looking around at the rest of these teachers to try to get like confirmation, like, this is crazy, right? Like, this is not normal. And what I realized is that 90% of the teachers were new because their turnover was so high. The ones that were there were super strange. Like, one of the guys came to the orientation with no shoes on, literally had no shoes on. And I was like, are we just not going to acknowledge that this grown man came with, this professional came with no shoes?
Oh, you definitely didn't tell me that. I would have remembered.
Yeah. So then they were like saying, one of the teachers was like, hey, let me look at your roster to see what kids you have. Cause I don't know these kids. And she had been there a couple years. So I show her my roster and she's just going, whew. Oh my. And I'm already sick to my stomach because I'm like, I want to go home. Like, I can't do this. So just looking through it and she's like, you got some, they ran their teacher out last year. And the thing was that these kids, it was just chaos. It was pure chaos. And I remember the first day of school, I'm trying to hold it together, right? Because that's what we do when we're overwhelmed. It's like you're just trying to hold it together, like keep it going. So I have this TD Jakes book, right? And it's all about like flying and soaring and following your dreams. So I bring this TD Jakes book in the classroom. And I'm teaching all seniors, and I have them for block classes. And block classes are an hour and a half. It's hard enough to be in a room with the same group of teenagers for 45 to 50 minutes. Put it at an hour and a half, and literally, I start to get shingles. Like, I feel my body like, get away from me, get out of my face. I can't take it. So I'm like doing this great presentation, right? And I'm like, I am so in it. I'm talking about how we're going to be a family and how we're going to respect each other. And I care about their lives and how they're growing. And of course, I'm like a new educator. So I'm like, a bit wide-eyed, and like, I haven't been ruined by the system yet. So I'm like really excited. But it was like within 30 minutes, it was like these kids started taking advantage of me because I was young. I was like barely 10 years older than the majority of them because most of them are 18, 19 years old. I was 25 when I started teaching there. So it was like, I could tell that they were starting to take advantage of me and like, they were trying to like pull one over on me and like talking while I'm talking and being rude and like talking under their breath. And then somebody was telling me, oh, she's going to be like the other teacher. And then they start sharing horror stories of how they like, it's like Sister Act part 2, where they're like super gluing her chair and putting tacks, like telling all these stories. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that night I went home and I had a literal breakdown, like just bawling my eyes out. Like I am in a war zone. I am ill-equipped. I can't do, like I was sitting in the middle of the living room and I was like, I have to pack up and leave. I can't do this.
I feel like this is like Dangerous Minds. And like the one clip where he tries to like attack Michelle Pfeiffer or something. She does like karate chop hands. Like,
I was never attacked. This is true. There was a teacher. Now, the turnover was amazing. Within the first week, 5 teachers up and quit. They couldn't they could not keep subs. These kids were on 10. And I remember one teacher, she had a very high-pitched voice, and you could tell she was timid. And I was like, oh man, they're about to eat her alive. And like, I think around the 3rd day, she had been pushed into a corner and someone had a yardstick because she took one of the kids' cell phones because you couldn't be on cell phones. So she took it and she wouldn't give it back. So the girl got up, grabbed a yardstick, put her in the corner, right? I said, if that was me, you're going to have to beat me down with that yardstick. Like we're about to go to blows. Yeah. But I remember calling my, the teacher I student taught for, and I'm bawling my eyes out and I'm telling her like, I quit. I'm quitting. I can't do this. It's too much. I shall fail. So there's no point in even pursuing this. Like, this was the wrong path. I will go to the post office, and I'm sure there's job openings, and nothing wrong with the post office. It was like, I was thinking, this is not for me. And what we'll talk about is kind of the things she told me and just really how we deal with being overwhelmed in general. But I think the similarity between these two stories is that all of us can share a story of like overwhelm in our lives, right? When something was happening and like everything's coming in at once, and sometimes we just want to quit, right? Or cry, or just say there's no point. But I think especially when it comes to weight loss, I think so many times the overwhelming part of it is what makes so many people not even want to start. It's like there's so much, why even start, you know?
Right.
And I want to talk about some of the reasons why we get overwhelmed when it comes to beginning our health journey, or if we're already on our health journey. I think the first thing is we focus too much on how much we have to lose, and we can get discouraged, especially if it's a big number. Right. Yeah. And I told my story before. When I jumped on that scale, 333.1 pounds. That is a literal cow.
I don't know about that. I think cows weigh way more than 331.
That's a calf. That is a calf.
Okay, I'll concede that it might be a calf.
It's some farm animal that's large, is my point. It's like, when I stood on that, I said, oh, this will be, I'll never. Yeah. That's at least, like, even to get into the 200s, some people just have 30 pounds to lose, right? Which is why sometimes the Weight Watchers, when we celebrated, like, oh, she reached lifetime, she lost 15 pounds. And I'm clapping and I'm like, I have 20 of those 15 pounds. And not to diss anyone, because it's hard for 1 pound, 15, 20, whatever it is. But for me, it was like, looking at that, it was a combination of feeling like I'm too far gone. This is going to be too much work. That number is too big. There's no way that I'm going to lose a healthy amount of weight and be able to keep it off. And my immediate reaction was, pack up your stuff and leave. If it hadn't been for, I feel like her name was Rosemary or Sandy or Nancy. I don't know.
None of those names are similar at all. So
it was a name that you would give to someone who looks like an older aunt or your grandmother.
Okay. All of those could fit into this mold.
Yes.
Okay.
And she was really quiet and very sweet. And the first meeting, we were celebrating her losing 100 pounds. And for some reason, when I looked at her, it was like, okay, if Sandy, Nancy, whatever, Rosemary. I almost think it's Rosemary, or I just like that. If she can do it, then I can do it. But I think a lot of times when we're on our health journey, sometimes we don't have those people in our lives that have already done it. So we can look at that, or we can be a certain size. I was a size 32. Now, I had yet to buy a 32. I was still squeezing into a 28. But when I realized that, I said, oh, no, because I'm going to have to go online and special order my clothes at that point. But to look at a 32 and know some people were fitting in a size 10, that's 22 sizes. That's massive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do, I think the most time that we feel overwhelmed is in the very beginning. I think that's when overwhelm is strongest. Of course, it's the entire journey, but I really think it hits us the hardest at the beginning. And I think that's part of it, is looking at the number and staring at it and think, wow, how did I get myself in such a mess, and how am I going to get out of it? I think another thing also, talking about the beginning and just getting started, I think one thing that can really just kind of weigh really heavily on us, especially if you've never went on a journey to lose weight before or to get healthy, is just the amount of information that there is out there. So if you're starting from scratch and you're all by yourself, like I was lucky because you had started the path already. So I had somebody that was there. I don't remember how many pounds you had lost before I started. Was it maybe like 30 pounds by the time I started with you?
I think I had almost hit my 50 by the time you were here.
Yeah, because it was a significant amount. So it was like I had somebody to guide me through my path. I had my Yoda that could help me, but a lot of people don't have that. So I think a lot of times we go and we do research on, okay, how am I going to get healthy? And there's all kinds of diets out there. You know, there is, I don't even know what keto is really popular, but you know, like all like Atkins and I can't even remember a lot of the old ones that were really, you know, and so it's like, okay, which ones of these are just fad diets? Which ones will really work and be long-term? If I do an exclusion diet, is it going to mess me up physically? You know, I got all this stuff in my cabinets. How do I even start? And I feel like sometimes we are so bombarded with all kinds of information that just trying to figure out where is my start point going to be, I don't even know. So then it's like you can almost give up right then because you're thinking, I can't, this is too much overload on information. Where am I going to even start? So I'm just going to give up.
Yeah, because the basis of most meal plans and diet plans are customized, right? So it's like if I go on keto, it's like, oh, I'm not eating carbs. If I go on paleo, I'm eating like cavemen. If I go vegan, then it's, you know, straight fruits and vegetables and such. If I go on gluten-free, like there are so many that eliminate certain foods. And each one that's come out is like, oh, this is groundbreaking. And because this exists, that means everything else is trash. Like keto is really good, but that means that all the other diets are trash because keto is now the new thing. Because it's like the trend, right? It's almost like the same thing with like workouts. Like Tae Bo was really big. Nobody's doing Tae Bo anymore.
Right.
You know,
I love Tae Bo. Let me tell you.
It's still an effective workout. So I think one of the things too, when you're researching is sometimes it's just a matter of trying things out and just figuring out if they work for you, because essentially the meal plans are all just literally, this is exactly what it's doing. It's making you eat less
and eat better.
Yeah.
Eat better.
It's like eating less and making better food choices. And then the opposite side is to move more. Like I know that sometimes we get frustrated when that's advertised as the secret to losing weight. It's eat less, move more. But really, that's a really great place to start, even with all the research. Like, don't get so bogged down in research that you don't do anything and use that as an excuse. Because the basis of starting any weight loss or health journey is to figure out, how do I eat better, minimize my calorie intake, maximize my movement so that those two things balance out.
Right.
Simple math. I think too, another thing that can happen is that we're trying to make too many changes at once and we get overwhelmed. You have to understand, first of all, like the brain does not want you to change. And it's not because there's something wrong with your brain. The brain is trying to protect you. Because when you get into a routine or you get into something that is predictable, you are programming your brain. So the minute that you start doing something different, your brain is like, whoa, this goes against the program. Why are we eating Cheetos? It's 7 p.m. And you're trying to throw a veggie stick in my mouth. That's disgusting. You know? Yeah. So sometimes, especially in the excitement, right? Like when you're starting something new, and I'm really big with this. Like I love starting new stuff. If I get bored, I'm like, what's new that I can start? And I get really excited, but sometimes you can change too much and take on too much at the same time that you end up getting overwhelmed. So if you're used to doing nothing and then you say, I only want to eat 1,200 calories. I'm not going to have any gluten. I'm only going to have fruits and vegetables. And I'm going to work out an hour a day. And you're used to doing nothing. That might take a toll on your body. I remember when I was dating my ex, he used to like go through these like really poor eating, like he would do like 3 and 4 days, right? And it'll be like around the 4th day and I'd be watching him eat. And like he would be eating so much, his glasses would fog up and he would like start.
How does that even happen?
He would literally work up a sweat eating what he was eating.
Gross.
And he was really tall, you know, so it was like he burned calories so quickly. He didn't really gain a lot of weight, but like generally he was just it was just a lot of unhealthy food.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd be eating and I would just be watching him, right? And I'll try not to look on in disgust because I didn't want to be judgmental. But literally he was panting, his glasses were fogging up, and then he'd sit back and he'd take a big breath. And then every time he would get to like around that 4th day, he would look at me and he'd be like, just vegetables for the next week. And I would just roll my eyes. And I'd be like, okay. He's like, no, I'm serious. Oh, a vegetable water diet for 7 days. And literally he never made it. One day he would have like vegetables. And then the next day he'd be like, I need to go to the store. I got to get some meat. Because it wasn't feasible. You know, it's like you go from like having a whole slab of ribs and like, you know, 3 different animal carcasses to vegetables only. Yeah. So I think when we're talking about changes is like, know your threshold of change and know that change is not always easy. Mm-hmm. And then if you're trying to compile way too many changes at once because you get frustrated with your life. So you're like, I'm just going to change everything, that could end up having the opposite effect and make you just give up on all of it, as opposed to if you just took like 1 or 2 things and made tweaks and started to reprogram your brain with those 2. And then once you were used to that, then move on to the next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually remember this was a couple of years ago, and this was when I was down to my now goal weight. And so I had lost a lot. And another girl that I knew had asked me for some advice. And I said, well, you know, I can show you kind of what I eat. She actually came with me to the grocery store. So I showed her some of the things that I got. And I try to eat clean. Like I do organic stuff. I do GMO, non-GMO, as much as I can to get all the garbage out of my diet. And, you know, I think I have a lot of food sensitivities because I could tell, like, as soon as I stopped eating a lot of that processed foods, like my face didn't break out anymore. I started feeling better. So anyway, you know, she's walking through the grocery store and I'm not telling her, you need to change every single thing in your house. And this is garbage food. You need to get organic. You need to do this. You need to do that. But she was very zealous. And she's one of those that, like, when she wants to do something, she jumps in with both feet. So then she ended up taking a picture like a couple days later and showed me she had a garbage bag full of food. She's like, I'm throwing all of this away. I'm like, okay, bless your heart. I like, take it slow, take it easy. I don't know, like, currently if she's still, like, what her shopping habits are, if she did make the change. And because, you know, of course, I didn't follow up with her. I was having my own issues. I started gaining. I was having struggles of my own. But to me, I don't know if I could have done that all at once. I mean, when I made the change to going completely clean, I'd already been doing Weight Watchers for years and years. So I already had good staples in my house. I was already watching what I ate. I didn't have junk in my house. So it was a matter of making minor tweaks and minor changes. But it can be super overwhelming if you try and you're starting just from scratch. You don't know how to swim and you're jumping into the deep end with no water wings on. It's going to be really rough for you instead of going into the shallow end and having somebody do swim lessons and say, okay, now we're going to go under the water and blow bubbles. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you need to start with just blowing bubbles in the water instead of doing a dive off the high dive. So another thing that can happen is that we have developed really bad habits that are hard to break. And so we can feel overwhelmed because we've got these habits and we're struggling so badly. Like, for example, for me, I know, especially when I first started, I was really having difficulty with my after work routine. So I would come home and I would be so stressed out. And this was when I had gotten my first job out of college and I worked at this really, really horrible place. It was awful. It was a very terrible place to work. So I would come home and I would be so stressed out. I could just feel it. And as soon as I got home, I'm like, I just want anything and everything out of these cabinets. Give me some carbs right now. I need some sugar. I need some bread. I need anything. And I would do like my after work unwind was my stress eating. So that was a huge habit that when I started, it could have really gotten me off track if I hadn't been focused and had a plan, because that was a bad habit and it was difficult. It took a lot of work to rewire my brain so I didn't come home and I was craving so much junk food because I had spent all day being stressed out.
Yeah, and I think this is the key is we are essentially when you are shifting behaviors, you are rewiring your brain, right? Which is why it's so important to pick, just like the last thing we talked about, to pick changes that you know can be long-term, right? Because we are looking to form long-term habits, and it's not an exact science, but it's something that you have to keep coming back to and doing over and over and over again. Because for me, like when I was really struggling with bulimia, I talked about this, I don't remember what episode, but like the time that it's like really bad is when I wake up from a nap. And when I was really struggling, I mean, it was when I woke up from a nap and then pretty much every other time I was emotional. It was just constant. And now that I've dealt with so much of that, my conscious mind, like I don't really struggle with it. But when I wake up from a nap, it's like my brain is so programmed that the minute I sit up from a nap, I'm like, I need food and I need so much of it. It's like that same response. So I think it's important to know that like you are rewiring your brain, which means you are picking behaviors that you can do on a consistent basis so that you can start replacing those habits and replacing those behaviors that are causing you to be honest, to feel overwhelmed in the first place. I also think that we can rush the process and become very unrealistic when it comes to our goals. Because sometimes our goals are for something, right? It's like, oh, I have a wedding coming up, or, oh, I have an event, or I want to lose, I don't know, 30 pounds in the next 2 months. So when we have unrealistic goals and when we rush the process, we end up taking on behaviors and taking on a lot of times fad diets. I think this is when it comes in the most. We can take on those fad diets that put the pressure on us, but don't have long-term, don't bring long-term change. Like I remember when I was doing the juice fast, it was so overwhelming because every morning I had to wake up and get like, you know, all this refuse of fruits and vegetables and shove it in a NutriBlender. And I had to have 4 of them, you know, because you're supposed to drink juice every 2 hours. And then I would go and like one time, you know, dump juice all over the car multiple times. And like, it was just awful. And then I was starving all the time. I was chewing on breath mints like they were food. And plus my breath stank. So it's like doing all that was so overwhelming, but it was like, oh, I got to get this weight off. I got to get it off. And this is the quickest way to do it. And I'm going to be like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to lose like 30 pounds. And I did. I lost a good amount of weight, but you know, within 2 weeks, I was right back to where I was before I did the juice fast. So that can happen a lot of times too, when we put so much pressure on ourselves to lose quickly. For what? You know, like for a wedding, who cares? To then just go back and, you know, to go back to how you were before, the fulfillment of that is just so underwhelming.
Right. And I think with that, I think a reason why these unrealistic goals that we're setting, I think it's because our why is not a good why. Because we've talked about this before. When you start off, you have to come up with your why. Why am I doing this? Why am I going on this health journey? And I think if we have skewed whys that are not really to help us to be a better person, not to help us be a healthier person, but it's just so I can look a certain way, if our priorities are not right, we're going to fall into that trap of, you know, our goals are unrealistic and then they're not long-term because I want to look really hot for this reunion because I want to shove it in all their faces and be like, oh, I'm better than all of you guys. You know, I know that that's a realistic thing that people do when they have a reunion coming up. They want to wow people. But of course, what happens the day after that reunion is over? I mean, are you going to Taco Bell and just going crazy? So I think if our why is not right, that's where we fall into this trap. I think another thing that really can cause us to feel super overwhelmed is if we try to be perfect all the time. So I have an example of this. So I think probably 2 years ago was when I first got my Apple Watch. So I got it and I'm like, okay, this is going to help me because I'm going to really up my activity. Which it does. It does help me because it buzzes to tell me to get up every hour. You know, it has goals. If I want to, I can set my workout goal, the calories that I want to burn every day. And I remember when I first started out, I got into a groove. And, you know, I would work out maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And then I started to up it. And then I got to the point where I was doing it every day. I was closing my rings. You know, I was burning my calorie count. I was standing for 12 hours. I did a half an hour of workouts. And so it would give you like, you'd hit goals and it would say 7 days in a row, perfect. You know, 8 days in a row, perfect winning streak. And I am telling you, literally, I went for, I think 2 months, maybe 3 months on this perfect kick. And then it was the week of Thanksgiving. And I don't remember what happened, but I was not able to work out. And let me tell you, I was devastated because I thought, even if I get back on this perfect winning streak, in order for me to get that medal of I topped this, I'm going to have to work out for 3 months in a row before I can start doing it again and get the perfect longest workout streak. And I thought, I was so devastated. And it took me so long to get back into a workout routine, especially at that time, I was on a huge plateau. And even with working out for 3 months straight, not losing anything. So of course, I was not perfect anymore. I failed. And it was like, oh man, it was very devastating. I've gotten over it since, but at the time it was pretty devastating. But if we are setting these kind of perfect goals where, you know, we have to do everything right. We can't cheat. We cannot eat anything that's outside of our plan. If we go to an event, if we cheat, it's over with. So I think we need to really get rid of that idea of we have to be perfect, because if not, how are we going to live up to that perfection? We're not. It's impossible.
Yeah. And I think understanding that neither leaning towards either side is not healthy. Like leaning towards the side of doing nothing and just staying unhealthy is not good. But then leaning toward the side of manic behaviors that's making you think that you have to be perfect. And like, if you eat a morsel of chocolate, it's going to throw you into a cycle of shame and guilt, and you're upset and you can't enjoy life. And this is still something that I personally struggle with. And it's not with the morsel of chocolate. It's a lot with working out, because I incorporate so much work, like so many workout opportunities into my schedule. I've connected with so many trainers in the past and just really love challenging my body. And I want to make people proud of me. Like, I don't know. That's why I even did good in gym, even when I was overweight, because it was like, I wanted to make people proud of me. So I'll go and I'll work out for 2, sometimes 3 hours straight, because in my mind, it's like, I got to do this. And realizing that that's a manic behavior. And even when it comes to eating disorders in general, and bulimia for me, it was this desire to like, I have to be able to control this and I have to be perfect. And the minute I put something in my mouth that wasn't on plan, it's got to come out. And it became so incredibly unhealthy and really did overwhelm me in the process. But the other side of that is that another reason why we can become overwhelmed just with our health journey is that we aren't 100% committed and we're cheating. You know, like we're really not committed to the process. And I do this sometimes because I'm guilty of lying to myself a lot. I will tell myself, like, you're doing really good. What's happening? Why aren't you losing weight? But I'll discredit the fact that I spent Saturday and Sunday just eating whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
But I'll just like forget that. And then I'll be mad. I'll be like, how dare the scale not show what I did? You know, I'm on a plateau and it's just not working. But I'm not being honest with myself of the commitment that I needed to make with myself. And that I still believe in the balance of allowing yourself the opportunity to just relax and not be so like gung-ho and focused. And, you know, you can have moments where you allow yourself treats, but when it becomes so much to the point of where it's really starting to deter you from your health goals and your health journey, then you really need to be honest with yourself and say, okay, I could be overwhelmed by this journey and feeling like I'm not getting results because maybe I'm not as committed as I think I am. Maybe I'm not as committed as I'm saying that I am because I'm not essentially being honest with myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had that issue too. And I think part of the reason why is that sometimes you can cheat and not be 100% committed and you don't see the consequences right away. So it's like, oh, I had that piece of cake and I didn't gain, or all I gained was 0.1. I'm good. And then it's like you get into those bad habits because you didn't see the consequences right away. And then all of a sudden you've allowed yourself to backslide and go back to behaviors that you conquered. And then you get upset. But then you're right. Being honest and saying, wait a second, I have tripped up. I am not being honest. I am not really committed like I used to be. So another thing that really overwhelms us, and especially me, which I've talked about this over and over again, and I will continue to hammer into everybody's heads. We weigh ourselves every day. Stop doing that. We actually had this conversation with Drea on Monday when we had our health call, because she said, you know, she's been doing really good, like we talked about last week, and she hit amazing goals and was doing awesome. And so she said, because we tell every week, we talk about not our exact weight, but we say how much we gained or lost. And she said, I didn't actually weigh myself because I've been weighing myself every time I walk past my scale. And so she was like, and we've talked about this before. She said, I would get on there and it would say I gained 4 pounds. And then I would go an hour later and it would say I lost 3.5. Mm-hmm. It is so much when you are looking at that number constantly. All you're thinking about is that number. And as we talked about, it goes up and down all the time. So if that's all you're seeing, it becomes a weight on you because you think, I'm never going to get this weight off because every time I get on the scale, I've gained 0.2 pounds, which really, if you waited until next week, once your body has evened out, once it's taken into account all of the activity you've done, all of the healthy eating you've done, you might get on the scale next week and you might have lost 2 pounds. But if all we're focusing on is that number, it becomes so huge and this big distraction, and it can feel really overwhelming. Definitely. So if you are weighing yourself every day, do yourself a favor and stop it.
Yeah. You know, we talked about this before. The number is data. Mm-hmm. So if you're collecting data, then my suggestion is once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. Mm-hmm. But also have other modes of measurement that you can do. A lot of gyms do these diagnostics where when they weigh you, they can also take your body fat. They can do your measurements, or you can just do that at home. Have someone take your measurements, or take progress pictures of yourself every day and start to compare those. Like, use as many measurement tools as you can so you're not just honed in on the weight, and even doing tools of growth when it comes to fitness. Like, start making goals for yourself in that area so that you're not so stuck on just the number, because if that was my only thing, I would give up every week. Mm-hmm. Even when I lose, it's like, yeah, I lost, but it should have been more.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Or I gained, how dare I gain? You know, and it just, that thought becomes so overwhelming, because then with it comes like, this is never going to come off. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I'm never going to hit goal. And it, like, all the thoughts start coming, and I start getting overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. I think another thing that can happen is if you've been doing this for a while, sometimes we get stuck on doing the same things over and over again, and we stop getting results. We hit somewhat of a plateau. And we did a whole episode on plateaus earlier in the season. But sometimes we get overwhelmed because we are relying on something that used to work that's no longer working. And really, that just means it's time to change it up, which once again can be difficult for our brain, because we're like, no, I like this. I like this type of food, or I like this type of exercise. But sometimes instead of staying overwhelmed in that sameness, you can just make a little tweak of doing something different to just shock your body and introduce something new into your body so that you can start getting results and being less overwhelmed with the process.
Right. And this kind of, I feel like we can talk about, they always say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, because it makes you crazy, literally. And I know just changing one little thing, just like you said, like I remember this time around, since I finally got back off of my plateau, started back down with my losing, finally going in the right direction. And mine was just, all I did was I tried intermittent fasting. So I eat between just lunch and dinner, and it made a really big difference. So I think just evaluating it, because eventually your body gets used to things, what used to work may not still work. So if we are just continuing to expect the same results from the same behavior and it doesn't happen, it can really overwhelm us and think, I don't even know what else to do. I might as well give up. So yeah. Another thing that we can do that can really get us off track and get us feeling like we can't take this anymore is comparing ourselves to other people. So I know I had this happen one time. This was a while ago. I was really struggling. And so I convinced Aaron, at this time we were still living at home, and I convinced Aaron to join Weight Watchers with me. And at this time I was pretty low. I think this might've been one of the 100 times when I'd got to my goal weight before I had gained it back. Mm-hmm. And so I was on a plateau. I wanted to lose more. So I'm like, okay, I need somebody to come with me to support me. So I finally asked Aaron, I'm like, come on, I convinced him. So he comes and he was like, all right, I'm going to do it. So he would every week, I would come home, he'd be eating pizza, drinking pop, and then he would walk on the treadmill at a normal pace for a half an hour. I would be working out like crazy. I'd be eating all kinds of healthy stuff, tracking my points. We would go to Weight Watchers. I would gain 0.2. He would lose 3 pounds. And I got furious. Like, this is not fair. He's not even trying, which of course is unrealistic for me to compare myself to him, because if anybody, like, if your husband or wife, or you've done it with your significant other and you're a female and you've tried to lose weight with a male, you cannot compare yourself to a man, because literally a man can stop drinking pop and then lose 10 pounds while you have cut out every single thing out of your diet and work out every day. So to try to compare myself to him was stupid. And all it did was made me frustrated. So if you're doing that, it can really make you feel like, I just can't take this anymore. This is too much.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. And I think too, like, understanding that our bodies are different, and,
right.
And when we look at everybody else's journey, that can be overwhelming, because it's like we start to get into our head of like, oh, look at how far they are. I'll never get to where they are. I'll never be as good as them. My body will never respond in the same way. So that puts us in such a negative state. But here's the good news to all the overwhelm that we've talked about thus far, is that there is a solution. And the solution was actually depicted in a really funny movie that me and Abigail both love, called What About Bob? If you've never seen this movie, you need to watch it. Mm-hmm. But the premise behind the movie is that there's a guy named Bob, and Bob struggles with a lot of mental disorders. So he's like OCD, and he has anxiety. Like, he can't be out in public. Like, people make him nervous. So he has like all these like mental health disorders. So he goes and sees a psychologist named Dr. Leo Marvin. And while he's having this session, Dr. Leo Marvin tells him about a book that he just wrote. And the book is called Baby Steps. And essentially, the book is about taking small steps, setting small, reasonable goals for yourself, one day at a time, one tiny step at a time. So Bob was saying, baby steps? And Dr. Marvin says, yeah, baby steps. It becomes like this mantra, right? So then Dr. Marvin says, so for instance, when you leave the office, don't think about everything that you have to do in order to get out of the building. Just think of what you have to do to get out of the room. And when you get to the hall, then you deal with the hall and so forth. So that's essentially the idea of baby steps. So the funny part is that like Bob for the rest of the movie is like, he keeps saying baby steps, like baby steps to the door. I'm baby stepping to the door. Baby steps to the elevator. I'm baby stepping to the elevator. And it's a super funny movie. But one of the things that we were talking about when we were talking about this topic is like, that is the key to conquering the overwhelm that we feel in any area of our life, but especially in the overwhelm that we feel on our health journey, is that you pick small goals and you take baby steps towards those goals. Because what really happens is while you're taking baby steps, the condition of all these little baby steps then come into these large steps and large changes that you're making with your life. Like if I go back to the story of me in the school, after I had the conversation with the lady that I student taught for, and she talked me off the ledge and convinced me to stay in that career for, well, I only stayed for 7 more years. So it was a good conversation. But she was like, she said, Amy, you have to start with part 1. And part 1 is taking control of your class, is establishing who you are. And she said, I'll send you some lesson plans. And she said, but every lesson plan, she said, you plan one day. What are you doing tomorrow? And then you go from what are you doing tomorrow to what are you doing for first period? What are you doing for second period? And then once you plan what you're doing for first period, what are you doing right after the bell rings? And then literally the way that she broke it down made so much sense. So when I was empowered with taking this, like, I can't do it to here's the little steps, I went in the next day. And the first thing I did is, let me tell y'all something.
I love this. This is the teacher voice. These stories are gold. I love them.
Right. So let me tell y'all something. I'm not the one. You're not about to be coming in here and talking over me. You're not going to be standing up and walking. In fact, you who's trying to talk over me, close your mouth, because this is what we're doing today. I'm here to teach. I'm not here to babysit. So here's the things that are unacceptable. Here's the consequences. Rules, consequences. That's how I run the classroom. I love you so much. And because I love you so much, I care about this environment. And the only way that I care is showing you that I'm putting boundaries. And those boundaries, I don't play with the boundaries. So if you think that I come in here as another teacher, you're going to run out, my income is way too important. And you have a teen in your age. You think you scare me? No. I mean, I went in. And then after I went in and I was like, and this is what we're doing today. And this is how the day will go. Now, if you're not in line with what we're doing today, I will invite you to please leave. The door locks on your way out and you can't come back in. And it was like, once I was able to gave me so much confidence to then go, as opposed to not having anything and feeling lost. It was like, I couldn't be confident with myself or with my journey. So that's really the importance of taking baby steps and starting small, because you'll become so much more comfortable on your journey and so much more confident in what you're doing.
Right. And I think about it this way. You cannot control every single thing that's going to happen, and you can't control the future, but you can control this moment. You have power over this moment. How empowering is that? That I can control this very moment. So how can I do that? And then it becomes less overwhelming because all you have to deal with is one thing.
Yeah.
So one thing that you can try that can help you is deep breathing. So if you are getting to the point where you are so stressed out, which we've talked about this before in our stress episode, but there have been studies that have shown that just doing deep breathing exercises can help reduce your stress. It can help you with weight loss. There are so many benefits. So even when you are feeling stress, if you just sit there and you feel like the weight of the world is crushing you, if you just say, okay, I need to take a time out and I just need to breathe and I just need to be by myself, it can be so beneficial to you. You can also use, I know that the Apple Watch has this. I don't know about other trackers, but they have like a setting on there that you can do that it'll set up to have you randomly breathe. which usually I turn it off because it's so annoying. It comes at very inconvenient times, but it'll just sit there and it'll tell you, okay, breathe. And then you can start it. And then it will actually tell you, okay, take a breath in, take a breath out. And it takes about 30 seconds, but it's helpful, especially if you're at work and you have time during work when it beeps to say, okay, I need to stop and I need to take a step back and breathe. It can really help you to focus, especially if you are feeling crushed by all of the things that are going on in your day.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do is do like a brain dump and make a list of all the things that you want to do. So let's say from a health standpoint, it's like making a list of all the things that you want to accomplish or all the changes that you would like to make. And underneath all those changes, what is that going to take for you to do, right? Start chunking those things. So if you're saying, I want to eat better, well, what does that look like? Are you going to follow a specific eating plan? And if that's the case, if you're following a specific eating plan, what foods do those entail? So now you're figuring out, okay, how much do I need to budget for those foods? And then now you're figuring out, okay, now that I have those foods, this is what I'm going to eat for each meal, right? Like meal planning was one of the most overwhelming things until I put a system to it. So Fridays or Thursday night, I map out my grocery list and the grocery list is synced with what I'm eating every meal. Friday, I shop. Sunday, I meal prep. And then the rest of the week is easy because I have to visually see it so that I can organize it, right? So it's like the things that you're really trying, like even exercise, write down what you want to accomplish that week and put it at baby steps. So if I'm saying I want to walk more, like I just want to move more, well, what does that look like? Does that look like on Monday, you're going to walk for 30 minutes in the morning? So that's the key. Like if you're writing it down, the key is how do I take this really big statement and this really big goal? Then how do I start getting brain dumping all of it on a piece of paper so I can see it and then I can kind of map it out.
Mm-hmm, right. I think it's so important that when you are trying to form good habits or learn something, the more senses that you can involve, so sight, smell, taste, hear, touch, the more senses that you involve, it helps to solidify the behavior in your brain. I've heard this before. It was years ago, so don't quote me. I don't know what the research says about this, but from my own experience, the more senses that you involve. So instead of just thinking it in your brain, this is what I want to accomplish today, write it down. So now you're looking at it, talk it out to yourself. So now you're speaking it and you're hearing it. So the more senses that you can involve, the better. And map your progress. So if you've made a list of everything that you want to accomplish today, check it off. It's so satisfying to check it off. I know there's this one girl that I work with. She makes a list all the time. And instead of putting a check mark, she scribbles through it. And it'll be like giant lines of like violent scribbles. I said, why do you do that? It looks like a psychopath. She's like, I need to do it. And then I don't see it anymore. Get rid of it. I'm like, all right, whatever works for you. But map your progress. It's so refreshing. And you feel that sense of accomplishment. Do that with your weight also, because we talked about don't get on the scale every week, but use a tracker and write it down so you can see every week. I might have gained 0.2, but if I look back from 3 weeks ago, I've actually lost 5 pounds. So track it, map out the success, map out your progress. So then you can see where you are. So you feel that sense of accomplishment and you feel like I'm actually doing it. I'm actually on my steps to my goal.
Yeah. And there's so many studies that talk about visualization, like taking your brain there before you get there. Right. And that's essentially the gift of baby steps, because baby steps is telling your brain where you're going instead of like this big, wide destination. It's like, no, I'm not just going home. I'm going from where I'm at right now to the door. And then I'm going from the door to the elevator and the elevator to the car. So it makes visualization that much easier, right? I even remember like Rosemary, Nancy, Sandy, whatever her name was. That was like a huge visualization moment for me because she represented something to me. So when I saw that, I was like, I'm going to lose 100 pounds just like her. And it was like, I saw myself having that moment where I was going to lose 100 pounds. And it was like, it came to pass, right? But it wasn't because I just visualized it. it was because I saw it. But then every single day I took the baby steps that I needed to do, because I couldn't just say, I want to lose 100 pounds and visualize it and then just go back home and, eat cheese sticks. And it was like I had to put some things in, baby steps in place. I couldn't just go home and eat cheese sticks. I had to take the baby steps to then get me to the visualization that I wanted. Another tip when we are going from being overwhelmed to taking baby steps is just enjoying being in the moment, right? Like I remember when I was just walking and I had this idea that I wanted to run a half marathon. It wasn't a great idea, but for some reason I had it. And I started doing all this research of like, how much running you would have to do to train and all of this. I ended up achieving the goal like 5 or 6 years later. But what I really enjoyed was the fact of building up to that, right? And sometimes I think that we forget about that, is that we want to get to the end destination because that's where we think the most fulfillment is. So instead of just enjoying where we're at right now, it's like we're always thinking like, just hurry up and get me through this so I can get to the fulfillment. But here's the reality. The moment that I ran the half marathon, it was extremely unfulfilling. Let me just say that. It ripped my love of running away from me in an instant. I will never do that again. I couldn't walk for 3 days. And I cried the last 3 miles because sure enough, I wanted to be done. I didn't even care. But the point is, like, the thing that was fulfilling for me was when I was able to run a mile, on the middle school track. And then it was like the time I was able to run 3 miles consistently. And then the time that I was able to run, it was like the buildup was so fulfilling because it was like, man, I can do this. And it was like the one thing after another. But like getting that medal, I don't even know where it's at. I really don't care about it. I barely tell that story. That story is told in anguish. But the build-up story to that, I always enjoy telling that because I found so much enjoyment in that moment. So I think like when you're taking those baby steps, like celebrate it and just be in the moment and think like, I'm doing it, even if it's small. Like I was doing it. I was walking around during commercials. Like that might have not been like a mighty moment, but for me, that was big. So I'm doing it and I'm just going to be in this moment and not think about, oh, I got all this weight. Or, oh, I walked for the commercials, but I should have been walking 30 minutes or I should have been walking an hour. So just enjoy where you're at, the build-up process, because that's where the most fulfillment is anyways.
Right. So I want to kind of apply some tips specifically to our health journey, because we kind of talked about broad tips for dealing with feeling overwhelmed. So I want to talk about some baby steps that we can do for our health. And so kind of like, I love what Bob does during the whole movie pretty much. He says baby steps for everything. Like I remember he was waiting for an appointment or something. I think it started at 1:00 and it was maybe like 5 till, and he's just sitting there staring at the clock. Baby steps to 1:00, baby steps to 1:00. So maybe you might want to sit there and say, baby steps to healthy, baby steps to healthy. And then we're going to talk about some of these baby steps to healthy. So one tip that we can give you is drink water. I know several of you out there are not water drinkers, and I know that a lot of people struggle with this. I can't relate because this is one thing I've never struggled with on a weight loss journey is I love to drink water. I've always been a huge water drinker, but I know this is a struggle, but I know that if you drink water while you are eating, it's going to help you feel more full. And I know there are actually studies that say that, well, I don't know if there's a study, but I've heard before that I do that a lot, right? I try to introduce things as facts.
Claim
and I don't really know if they are facts, but
listen, we live in a false news world.
That's right.
Nobody's fact checking you. If Abigail says something that has a study that is false, please fact check her. But on my end, I have no time. I believe you. Continue.
I sound really reliable, right? The truth, according to Abigail. So anyways, but I've heard, and maybe it was a Weight Watcher meeting when they were talking about this, but sometimes thirst can actually manifest as hunger. And you think that you're hungry and you're actually thirsty. So if you incorporate that, if you're feeling hungry first, try to drink some water, see if that makes you feel a little bit more full and like, oh, I actually was thirsty. Or make sure that you have it during your meal so that you're drinking, you slow down with your eating. You're not consuming it so quickly and then filling in with water here and there. So take a bite, take a sip of water, and that will help you to feel full. And a lot of times as we're eating, we don't feel full until later. And we might have eaten a lot and our body hasn't caught up with us yet. So, I mean, we could have maybe eaten half and in 15 minutes, we would feel full, but we just kept going because our body didn't know, oh, we're full now. So if you incorporate that drinking water into your mealtime, it can really help you.
Yeah. And if you are a pop soda drinker, you can try flavored seltzer water that doesn't have sugar in it. I drink that a lot. And that helps too with like really making you feel full because that carbonation sits on your stomach. So if you're a person that's like, I love my soda, I love my pop, totally fine. But find a little bit of a healthier alternative with getting some of the seltzer water. And you can even get no calorie sweetener like stevia. Stevia is one that's supposed to be a little bit more healthy than your Sweet and Low and Splenda. And put a little bit of stevia into the seltzer water and it makes it taste even sweeter. So it kind of gives it that soda pop feel if that's something you're really leaning into. But the most important thing is getting more water into your diet because it's super important. Another baby step that you can take is just committing to move more each day. And one of the things you can do is to count your steps. So if you have a Fitbit, if you have an Apple Watch, this is already incorporated. I don't have either, but my phone counts my steps. I have an app that's called Pacer. But you can literally just go on in the App Store and just write counting steps, and they can give you all the different apps that can count your steps. And if you're at a 0, maybe it's not the best to put 10,000 steps every day. That's a lot, right? So maybe if you're at a 0, maybe just commit to doing 3,000 steps or 1,000 steps. So just commit every day. Like you don't have to get into a like strong workout plan or be doing 30 minutes of HIIT every day. Can you go from 0 to a certain amount of steps? Or can you go at the steps that you're at right now and maybe increase it by 1,000? Just to always keep yourself moving and keep yourself taking baby steps towards progress. Always, even if you're currently on the journey, you're still even taking baby steps to always be improving on the health journey.
Yeah. And that reminds me actually of our old Weight Watcher leader. She was, I think maybe your first one, or I don't remember, but she actually talked about, I think she lost over 100 pounds. And she used to say this a lot, that she moved never. And so her first steps, her baby steps, was she walked from her house to the corner on the sidewalk and then turned around and came back. And she said the first time that she did it, she thought she was going to die because she never moved and she was so overweight. I think she had knee problems, but she said, okay, I'm going to start it. And that's all she did. And then she ended up increasing it. So maybe the next time she went to the corner and then she turned and went the other way down to the next street and then came back. So I think if you're doing that, you know, like you said, Amy, maybe you want to do baby steps to 1,000 steps. So then you say to yourself, baby steps to 1,000, baby steps to 1,000. And then you get there and then you feel really great. And then maybe next week you've conquered 1,000. So then you say baby steps to 2,000, baby steps to 2,000, and just take it slow and you'll be amazed at how strong you can be.
Yeah.
Another thing you want to do is eat at least 1 serving of fruits and vegetables per day. There are a lot of different things that are out there that say, you know, I've heard you should eat 3 servings of each per day. So there's a lot of different opinions out there. But I mean, for somebody who, if you've never had that incorporated into your diet and you don't eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, for us to tell you, you need to eat 3 servings of fruits and 3 servings of vegetables per day, that can be very overwhelming. So don't start there. Start with, I'm going to do maybe 1 cup of blueberries because they're in season right now and they're delicious. And I'm going to cut up some, a half a cucumber and a tomato, put some salt on them, and I'm going to add that to my meal. Something small and get it started. Or just say, okay, I'm going to have a cup of baby carrots, and then maybe I have like a low fat ranch or like some kind of yogurt dressing. I'm going to use that. Just anything to incorporate. And once you've conquered that, do 2 cups a day or do a cup and a half, but use that as your baseline and get those into your diet, because those are really going to help you.
And specifically with vegetables, choose vegetables that you like.
Right.
You know, like experiment. I love Brussels sprouts. A lot of people hate Brussels sprouts.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never see me put an iota of okra in my mouth. It's disgusting. I just won't do it. I don't care what health benefits. I hate kale. Yeah. There's no way that I can cook it that'll make it taste good. I don't even like kale chips. People throw out like olive oil all over it.
Oh, I like kale chips.
Disgusting. So I'm not going to eat it. So it's like, learn how to experiment with different vegetables. Like even they have like recipes to teach you how to roast, like specifically roast vegetables to make them taste a little bit crunchier. So there's so many fun things that you can do with vegetables and even fruit. I mean, fruit pretty much can stand alone for most people. But like vegetables is usually the ones that we struggle with the most. But find fun things to do, experiment, and then just have an elimination list of hate this, don't want to eat it. You know?
Right. You want to try to get your meal to be as colorful as possible, because the more colorful it is, the more healthy it is.
Yeah.
So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Another thing is to clean out your cabinets. Now, I want to tell you what you shouldn't do. Tomorrow, you shouldn't get a garbage bag and throw everything out. So when we're saying clean out your cabinets, we're not saying for you to go and throw away perfectly good food and start from scratch. Now, if that's something that you want to do, that's fine. But remember, that can be one of those triggers that can make you feel overwhelmed and feel like you have to go from 100 to 0. And then, you know, it can just be too much. But maybe it's you opening up your cabinets and taking stock of what you have. And when you look at the things that you have, maybe ask yourself, are the things in my cabinet representative of my health journey and where I would like to take my body? And if you find that some of the things in your house are detrimental to your journey, that's a targeted item that says, that's something I'm not going to put back into my home. It's funny because like when I went and I saw like all of your ice cream in Mom's house, and I thought that was so great, because that's like an example, even understanding who you are. Like if you come to my house, I have a friend that comes over and like we make coffee in the morning. So he'll open the refrigerator and he'll just kind of look at me because it's empty. Because I have my containers for my lunch and my dinner. I eat oatmeal and egg whites and avocado for breakfast. And I don't have anything else. And I'll go to Trader Joe's on Friday. And when I'm there and I'm shopping for the week, I'll see like tortilla chips. And I'm like, maybe like, what is it? 12 chips is a serving? Maybe. And I'll hold it and I'll say, don't lie to yourself. Put it back. And then, you know, it's like going down each aisle and I'll pick like, oh, cereal, shredded wheat with brown sugar. Only a cup is like 200 calories. That's put it back. You're lying to yourself, right? Because I know me. So I know that what is in my cabinet has to set me up for success and not failure. So I have a specific plan that I'm using, and I'm putting those foods in there that are specific to me. If you're someone that has kids or has other people in your house that aren't following your plan, get your own cabinet. Like me and Abigail, when we were living together, we had space just for us, right? And nobody better touch it. Like Aaron better not lay a finger on our low-fat desserts. Right? I don't care how good they are. Keep your hands off. You're choosing to go to Taco Bell, go to Taco Bell.
Right.
But it's like, even create space for yourself so you know this is my success area. Like your cabinet should not be where you go to be even more overwhelmed, because now I'm going to have to fight a battle that I didn't necessarily have to fight had I prepared the cabinet. So start small. What are the vices in your house that you're always struggling with? I don't put cereal in my house, and I let it back in my house. And literally for a month, you remember this, Ab,
Yep.
every week when we would have our health call, I'd have to be like, listen, I pretty much ate a box of cereal on Saturday, like the whole box. I want to say
cereal is amazing.
Yes. And I want to say like, oh, I only ate 3 bowls as to not shock you all. But I felt like a liar. And I was like, I ate the whole box. And it was like every week I would go through and be like, okay, well, this week I'll have self-control. I just know that I can't. So that's like a fail food. It just can't be in my cabinets. It can't be in my home. Any snack that's in a bag can't be in my home. It just can't because I'm a snacker by nature. So knowing that about myself, I've replaced so much stuff that keeps me on track.
Yeah. And like you said, we don't have to replace everything. But I would say, especially if you're first starting out, pick one thing and replace it with something healthy. So for example, I love popcorn. I used to be a huge microwave popcorn eater and it was so delicious. It was salty and buttery, but of course it was super unhealthy, super fattening. Plus a lot of them are filled, like that cheese is fake. That butter is fake. It's got all kinds of additives, preservatives, artificial flavorings, GMOs. It's a lot of garbage. So what I decided to do is I got an air popper and just did the plain popcorn, and which of course is very bland, but I use olive oil to season it. So it's a healthy oil. And then I get the, I don't remember what the brand is. I think it's Kernel maybe, but they have popcorn seasoning. So of course, no points with that. And it's a white cheddar. I use that. It's delicious. And so then I can have a lot for a lot less calories, a lot less points. So if you're picking just one thing, maybe it's your vice and something that really gets you tripped up. So, maybe it's ice cream, and then maybe you want to go to the store and buy some Enlightened because that's something you can much more easily deal with because it's a healthier alternative. So even if you just want to focus on one thing and say, okay, this is a struggle for me, I need to get rid of it, but I still like the taste of it. I still want that salty chip feeling. So instead of getting Lay's potato chips that are filled with, they have a lot of grease and salt and all kinds of stuff, I'm going to get these non-GMO blue corn tortilla chips, which still have the salt in them, but that's much better for me. So just pick one thing, get on that, make it an easier goal. Focus on one thing and then you'll be more successful.
Yeah. And my advice to you is to find something that like you're really attached to, that it's like something that you really love, and start really looking for those alternatives. Like I enjoy eating pizza. But it's not always feasible because I can eat a whole pizza. Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I can't.
Oh, delicious.
So if I'm like really craving it, there's like 2-ingredient pizza dough that you can find online. Literally, if you do research on anything that you love, right? And you just go to Google and type in that thing and then just put healthy alternative, there are options that you can buy, or there's things that you can cook if you really love cooking. So really try to get creative with it, because the point is that the thing that's going to be overwhelming is the idea of, in order for me to be healthy, I have to give up the enjoyment of my life. I cannot enjoy life, and I have to punish myself for the rest of my life. That's a very overwhelming thought. When we just shift it and say, all I have to do is just start taking baby steps to start readjusting my brain, my palate, what I'm able to digest, because what you'll find is that with the baby steps that you're taking and the things that you're replacing, your body will start to crave those things. Now, that doesn't mean you'll never eat those other things again. Do I still eat cake? Yes. Will I always still eat cake? Yes. I will not stop.
Yes,
I just
amen to that.
I don't want to live in a world where we can't eat cake. Like, what kind of world is that? But it's like, some people have like that thing, right? So you plan out those moments, like, once a month, I'm going to have a piece of cake and I'm going to enjoy it, but if you're going at it 90% of the time, that 10% isn't going to derail you. Another thing that you can do is celebrate your successes, because that's so big. I don't do this enough. Celebrating your successes is acknowledging that the things that you are doing are working, whether that be working based on the scale, based on how you feel, based on your like your overall health. Like you're going to the doctor and they're saying, oh, you don't need to take blood pressure medication anymore. Or, oh, you don't have type 2 diabetes anymore. So every little step should be celebrated. And even like mental steps. I remember there was just such a super supportive group. And since COVID, we haven't been able to get together like that. But they've always been such a supportive group. And the thing that I love most about this group is we celebrated mental successes so much. It was like, I went out and I went to dinner and I got what I wanted and I left and I didn't beat myself up or think that I'm a terrible person. That's a mental success. And we all clap. Yeah, that's awesome. But find as many moments as you can to celebrate with the knowledge that this is hard. Like it's hard to make change in your life and it's hard to take this big idea of health and narrow it down and start fashioning it for you. That's not easy. That's why most people don't do it. Or they'll start and they'll just quit because it's difficult. So as much as you can, celebrate yourself on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
What went well? What was good? And it doesn't just have to be from a health standpoint, but find as many opportunities as you can to celebrate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another thing that you want to do is sit less and stand more, which we talked about this in the exercise episode. And I actually read, and this was a for real study because I read it out of a book. So, and I talked about NEAT, which it's NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And basically it's any activity that you do that is not a specific workout. So not cardio, not going on an hour-long power walk, not doing any HIIT training, nothing like that. It's basically just getting up, standing, walking around. And they've done a ton of studies that show that people that do the same kind of work and have all of the same, basically the same statistics across the board. And the only difference was that people sat longer, and then this group actually got up and stood and walked longer, and they had lower obesity rates. So even if you set your alarm on your phone so that every hour it goes off, and then get up and walk around the room, or if you have a job that has, you're working at a building that has floors, walk the stairs every hour. I remember when I started at the job I'm at currently. So this was like 7 years ago. And I got to the point, this is when, again, one of my 50 times that I was on my downward losing. And I did that exact thing. And this was before they had a lot of the trackers were really popular. So I didn't have like a wearable tracker. So I just set my alarm, and it was me and a couple of the girls in my office. And at the time we were working in a building that had I think 5 floors. And so every hour we get up and we do the stairs. And then it was a good thing to get our heart rate up. And then we went and sat back down and got back to work. So anything that you can do just so you're not sedentary all day. Because as we talked about before, sitting is the new smoking. They've done studies and show that it's very detrimental to your health. So get up, walk around. It's going to help you.
Yeah. I think another one is make sure that you're making healthy breakfast. And I think this one's so important because a lot of times we have like these ideas of what we want to do for the day, right? And then if we feel like we mess up or we don't go to plan, it's like it's easy for us to give up. Mm-hmm. So if the first thing that you're eating in the morning isn't essentially healthy, that could almost make you start making excuses the rest of the day. Well, I already messed up. Might as well keep going, as opposed to if you're planning out a healthy breakfast, it's already setting up your day for success so that when you go to the office and the office happens to have a dozen donuts, it's like you've already eaten your breakfast. You've already, established that this day you're going to make healthy choices. So really being specific about preparing breakfast that, first of all, fill you up, but are healthy so that it sets you on the right focus for the day.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that you should do is replace the whites in your cabinet. So white bread, white rice, white sugar, white pasta, any of those foods everything is refined. So flour is refined, and any of that it's all modified. So you've got GMOs, you've got artificial flavorings, additives, preservatives, which are so unhealthy for you. So if you replace them with the healthy alternative and go for, the all natural, the wheat. So you're doing wheat bread, which you have to watch those because some of those still have a lot of sugar in them. You have to be very careful with the bread that you get. But getting the cane sugar, which is not the refined white sugar, going with wheat pasta, it'll take some getting used to. I remember, Amy, that do you remember before we were healthy and Dad always had, I think he had Ezekiel bread. There was a couple of breads that he got. Yeah. And we were like, he would try to get us to taste. I'm like, these are disgusting.
Yeah. Gross.
I know. And of course, once we started being healthy, we're like, all right, Dad, we'll try it. And now I get the Ezekiel bread and I like it. But it took me a while because a lot of people are like, this tastes like eating grains. I feel like I'm eating rocks and sand. It's disgusting. But it is such a better alternative. So getting rid of those is going to definitely help you, and it'll help you feel better because you'll get all those preservatives, those additives, those artificial flavorings out of your body, clean out your body, and you'll feel better.
Yeah. Cause really it's the thing that's so amazing about baby steps is that it does so much more for your mental state than I think you realize. So if you just replace white bread with wheat bread, and you start to feel the difference in it, even if the taste is something you have to get used to. But when you start to feel the way that your body responds to it in a positive way, it's going to make you want to make even more baby steps in that direction. It becomes addicting, Mm-hmm. I think the last thing that we want to talk about is finding a health buddy. We might say this probably every episode because both of us are just so super adamant about the importance of community because that's essentially what keeps us going. Yeah. I have always had some form of community surrounding me, whether that be physical trainers, other people on the journey with me, Weight Watchers. Now it's, doing the health call. I go to gyms that have classes, so you kind of get to know people. It's so important that you have people along the journey with you so that you don't feel overwhelmed and alone, right? And those people don't have to be in your vicinity. You can find people in the virtual world. We've said this so many times. But as you're taking baby steps, find somebody else who's taking baby steps. If you are just starting, find somebody else that is just starting. I remember this was a couple weeks ago. Somebody on Facebook, that one of my friends on Facebook, was writing about how she felt so overwhelmed and she wanted to start losing weight. And she didn't know where to start. And it was like so many people came under and were like, yeah, I'm in the same boat. And I'm like, that's your community. You're in the same boat. Okay. Well, come in my boat. Get out of your boat and let's get in this boat and let's paddle in the right direction. Right. And if you're already on your journey and you're already doing things, find people who are already on their journey too, because it's not easy. Like there's a reason why we put aside every Monday night to have a health call, and it doesn't matter. All three of us are working. We have a lot of, Drea has 3 kids. So it's like, but still you prioritize that because you understand how important it is to have people on your side who are celebrating. And we celebrate our baby steps with each other all the time. The little changes that we're making, the little goals that we have each week. And that makes all the difference because without it, it just feels like this mound of things I need to do. And I'm all by myself and I can't talk through it with anyone and I can't vent and I can't celebrate. I can't do anything. I'm all by myself. So it's really important to find a community, and maybe the baby step is just finding one person. Doesn't even have to be a large group. Can you get on Facebook or your social media and just say, hey, I am on my health journey and I'm looking for somebody else who's on it as well that wants to link up. I guarantee you'll get responses. If you are just starting, hey, I really want to make some health changes. Anyone else in the same boat? Guarantee people will join, even within your friend group or your family. Are there people, if you have an extended family, can you reach out? Can you Can you guys link up and go on a walk? Can you do like me and Abigail did and get on virtual and like, hey, let's do this workout together. I'm at my house, you're at your house, but it feels good having you here because that's accountability. So get creative so that you can really start putting people in your corner and start making some baby steps. So this is our challenge to you this week. We want you to make one baby step. So simple. So we've given you some ideas, and this is just 10 things that you can do, but there's so many different baby steps that you can take. So we want you, first of all, to take a baby step, and we want you to share with us what was the baby step that you took. So you can leave a comment on YouTube. Leave a comment for us on YouTube if you're watching us right now. If you are listening to us on a podcast platform, you can email us at onemorecookiepod@gmail.com. We've gotten some great emails with great ideas and great feedback, but we want to hear from you. What are some baby steps? One, if you have more than one, great. But what is one baby step that you're going to take this week? Also, if you're in the stage of, I want to start, but I don't know where to start, I just need encouragement, or I need a bit of a push, reach out to us. Like that's our heartbeat for doing this is that we want to share information, but more than that, we want to build relationships.
Right.
You guys.
We'll be your health buddy.
Yeah.
The last one. If you need a health buddy and you're looking for somebody, email us, because we're looking for people that we can go through the journey with, we can encourage, and that can encourage us. If you need a health buddy, send us an email. Share your progress. Share your progress with us. We want to celebrate your successes with you. So feel free, email us. We'll be your health buddies.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We have had so much fun talking through baby steps, which is what is going to help us get over being overwhelmed, or at least coping with being overwhelmed. So we hope that you found some value with this, and we can't wait to hear what your baby steps are that you're about to take. So be well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next time on another episode of Just One More Cookie.